Choip, choip, choip. Choip, choip, choip.
The Underworld is sparklier than I would have expected. You are Zagreus, son of Hades, and you have to get out of here. The problem is your father won't let you. What can you do? Answer: fight your way out of the Underworld in spite of him and his many minions. And you died. Don't worry, this is already the Underworld. You'll be sent somewhere that's just walking distance from your bedroom. Is this perhaps the most perfect justification for roguelike gameplay ever? At the very least, it has to be up there. And once back at the house, you can catch up with your friends who make up the household staff. They're your confidants and your father's helpers, in greasing the gears of underworld bureaucracy. Once you're done chatting, maybe upgrade the house, or yourself. Train a bit, receive a chewing out for trying to escape again, and when you're ready, try again. The Underworld is designed to be inescapable. The rooms rearrange. Justification for procedural generation achieved. Old hat, that one. Even used by Spelunky. Enter those rooms and defeat the dead in your way. They take forms based on who they were during life and other aspects described in the Codex. There's a large variety of enemies to kill, and almost all of them move and attack in different ways. Massive enemy variety. Sure, some of them are scaled up versions of weaker enemies, but still. Visually distinct, and you immediately know how to deal with them. From experience, across many runs you will train by killing them en masse. And you have a variety of weapons to deal the pain with, all with their own primary attack and special move. But each one of those weapons can be upgraded by a hammer of Daedalus. That kind of looks more suited to tenderizing the Greek mythology equivalent of chicken. Sometimes the benefit for the run is only a damage boost, but other times it can fundamentally change how the weapon functions. And you can also unlock different aspects of the weapon to form a permanent part of your arsenal, remaining equipable to change the weapon stats, and sometimes gives the option to have the weapon function completely differently, with seemingly a whole new set of Daedalus upgrades for that aspect. Add to that the fact that your family, the Olympians, want to help you out by granting you a few boons that empower you in different ways, your attacks, your specials, your costs, with say elemental damage or knockback or something. Plus you can earn darkness and upgrade your own skills or choose new ones. So there's a lot of combat variety. Multitudes of status effects, attack types, powers, etc. 10 different Greek deities, all with a bunch of boons to bestow on various aspects of your play, including legendary ones and duo boons when they start to team up together, and grant sometimes extreme benefits. 6 different weapons, with a lot of Daedalus hammer upgrades for each of them. Various aspects for each one of the weapons, as well as different Daedalus hammer upgrades for some of them. So many possible combinations to complement your tactics or playstyle. Probably leads to a better attempt at the whole concept of every run being different. And that's if you focus on these aspects only. Sometimes you have choice of which room to progress to and thus choice of reward. Boons for now or gold to purchase with later. From Chiron, the boat person. Pomegranates to upgrade the boon's power levels. Keys to unlock various skills. And trade. Darkness to unlock the mentioned skills. Gems to upgrade the house and Underworld that will make subsequent runs easier and give you a chance to do some interior decorating within reason. Nectar to give as gifts to characters and forge connections. Trials, Titan Blood, Diamonds, Ambrosia, Centaur Hearts, character events, mini-bosses, so much to collect, so many choices. If you want to, you can play as Captain Grease. Plus side quests in the form of prophecies, all achieved with really fast, tight gameplay. After all that, we can actually start discussing the visuals. It's a beautiful game, very detailed, and Greek in style. See, those square, loopy things are here. And as mentioned, someone seemingly is kind of upbeat about the whole being dead thing, and decided to deposit glitter everywhere. Lush. I mean, just look at the first zone, Tartarus. This is supposed to be the place of punishment for those deemed the worst of the worst. Yet it looks kind of glowy, colorful, and nice at times. That spiderweb isn't exactly making it look uninviting. Even the blood red river Styx with spirit hands coming out of it looks nice, somehow. But in all fairness, Asphodel looks quite unpleasant and that's supposed to be the upgrade. And okay, sure, sometimes Tartarus's leg of the river Styx has more of an abattoir feeling. Sorry, that sounded better than pronouncing the R. 5 zones with procedurally generated rooms that act as fighting stages. That extravagant house, as well as smaller, less common zones, all are different and have visual merit. Sometimes with nice touches in the foreground. Character design is good too, hand-drawn and ties into a good story. I suppose the Olympians at times can come across as archetypes, but they're posturing, powerful mortals, and you come to care for them, even as they squabble amongst each other and punish you for not choosing them during a trial. A lot of regular families argue, are passive-aggressive, fight over petty things. Your immortal Uncle Zeus would probably do all of those things as well, except while throwing lightning at you. And you can't please everyone, so it's your turn to try and kill my Uncle Ares. Your interactions with the household staff are more complex though. They're more personal and colloquial towards you, and you come to care about them too. It's a unique take on a very well-worn theme, the complexities of familial love and dynamics. And the story is presented well, as a few sentences of dialogue at most in between runs. It's not overwhelming, it's kind of bite-sized, and optional, sort of, and fully voiced over.
Don't give me such ideas, Orpheus. Instead, you go about your business there and play your blasted songs when circumstances call for it.
I guess they didn't want to repeat the divisively thick story and dialogue of their previous game Pyre. But the story presentation isn't perfect because this is a roguelike game. And people tend to play and progress at different speeds. And sometimes the order in which various conversations are triggered get a bit jumbled. And some conversation triggers required for prophecies can be delayed. And also in this realm, sometimes the justification for another run is a bit forced. You know, people leaving something out for next time. Come on, theoretically you can just speak faster. But honestly, those are not big problems. The music's good too, but I barely noticed it. The action was that enthralling, but you can argue that that means it just blends with the combat. More sedate, rhythmic, classical era-inspired stuff, usually when it comes to the more workaday fights, that builds tension.
I feel fabulous.
And with the theoretically harder stuff, they go full-on electric guitar, with a very noticeable riff pattern that produces its own tension-inducing beat.
Oh no.
Except with higher stakes. Plus throw in some lyre, because, you know, Greece. It's lyrical. It's absolute punishment.
I'll take it.
And for some reason, some paranormal wailing is fairly common. I played the game for a long time, about 85 hours. I completed the main game, quite a lot of prophecies, formed a lot of bonds, helped some folks, and maybe completed the epilogue. Arguably because of the leaving it to next time thing, it was even harder to tell. I know there's dialogue left, but I believe I got most of the things that are worthwhile, at least along the lines of the main story. Also remember, it's a roguelike game, so this game time can be quite variable. And maybe let's be a bit more conservative here, and use a playtime that excludes the vague wading through the epilogue. It took me 65 hours to complete the main story and start the epilogue. But playing it is fun as well. And maintain that extra 20 hours is worth it, even though waiting for some conversations to trigger was frustrating, but once again not a big problem. And the game is quite cheap on Steam, 150 Rand full price, 90 Rand on sale. And it's not that old really, so it probably will go on a better sale in the future. That's 1 Rand 39 per hour of gameplay if you only play the main story. And 1 Rand 6 cents per hour of gameplay, with the epilogue included. Both represent great value for money, but the download it is quite big as it takes up 11.41 gigabytes on the hard drive. That is quite the ask. It works on the Warhorse technically. It lags a lot, especially during complex boss fights, such as against all three Fury sisters at the same time. But the gameplay is perhaps too fast to put up with lag of this caliber. But this was the first test. I tested it again recently and it played much better. Lagged in a fountain room, but fighting against the sisters was a lot better. But it may just revert to the original test's bad performance, so you will need something stronger than the Warhorse to play it properly. But if you're willing to lower the res to the lowest possible setting, then it works quite well, with a fairly high frame rate and a jolt here and there. But ultimately fairly smooth. But that's if content is king in your case, and you don't need to run something full tilt. And stereotypically, I would say it's not that bad for kids. It's not violent in a bloody way, except maybe if the River Styx actually is made up of blood. I don't think there was any swearing. It has a mature story, but not that dark, except for the, tortured souls. There is implied sex though. It cuts to a black screen and you hear whipping, etc. But I argue some kids can handle it. The game is visually beautiful, colored, varied, lush, detailed with a nice isometric view, great roguelike gameplay with a massive list of ways to power up and a great many combinations of those power-ups. And it also has a fair amount of permanent upgrades that you can purchase with collectibles. It has lovely tight combat with a whole lot of enemy variety to perfect it against. It has a good unique story with great characters and dialogue, and it is presented in a digestible way to give a better story to gameplay balance. Maybe still a lot when you account for all the different characters you can talk to back at the House of Hades, but the conversations are skippable, sort of. Also a whole lot of voiceover work of quite good quality. Also it has good music. But, in all fairness, I didn't really focus on it that much. When listing the achievements of this game, it's not really on the top of my list. Didn't really wow me. But that boatman theme is great, and the combat music does instill tension. On the cons side, the roguelike nature of the game does create some issues in the presentation of the story. Some progression is story-based, as in some things can only trigger after having a specific conversation. You can spam the next button if that annoys you, but to get every piece of dialogue, some of the bonds, some of the prophecies, etc. can be quite a slog at times, as waiting for a certain dialogue trigger can be holding you up, especially if you happen to make good time. I maintain that isn't that much of a problem, that it makes you more antsy at times. At the very least, that's what it did to me. Come on, play it and engage in a pen-pal relationship with a bunch of Olympians and fall in love with a disturbing-looking character with a something of gold.
What you describe, it must have been the cause. I trust that the occasion is a welcome one, and I am pleased that you returned nevertheless.
Choip, choip, choip. Choip, choip, choip.